Yo, what's good, everyone? Welcome back to Quirk Chronicles. Today, we've got an epic crossover What If Naruto was the reincarnation of Ichibe Hyosube? Imagine Naruto wielding the wisdom and power of the monk who calls the real name, commanding the ability to manipulate names and redefine reality itself. With Ichibe's knowledge and Naruto's unstoppable will, how would the shinobi world change? You already know this is going to be insane. Before we get into it, make sure to like, share, and subscribe if you haven't already. Alright, let's not waste any time. Let's dive straight into the story. Naruto sat at the rendezvous point, the moon high in the sky, its pale light casting long shadows across the clearing. He sat cross-legged on the ground, his eyes half-lidded in quiet contemplation as he played absent-mindedly with his brush. He dragged the brush across the dirt, making abstract strokes as if painting the very air. In reality, he was testing his ink's potency, even in its dormant state. He chuckled to himself, the thought of Mizuki's reaction amusing him. The sound of footsteps reached his ears long before the silver-haired trader came into view. Mizuki arrived as expected, a smug grin plastered on his face, though his eyes betrayed a hint of wariness. The man wasn't alone. Naruto could sense another presence lurking just out of sight, hiding in the thick shadows of the nearby trees. Naruto made no effort to acknowledge it, his attention fixed on the treacherous academy instructor. "You're late," Naruto said in a casual tone, getting to his feet. His voice was light, but his eyes gleamed with anticipation. Mizuki frowned at the lack of formality but ignored it. "Where's the scroll, Naruto?" he asked, scanning the area with suspicion. Naruto's lips curled into a sly grin. "Somewhere safe," he replied, his tone easy, as if they were discussing an inconsequential matter. In truth, he hadn't stole the scroll at all. Mizuki's frown deepened. "Hand it over and you'll become a genin," he said, his voice oily with false encouragement. "Isn't that what you want? To pass the exam? To be a real ninja?" Naruto raised an eyebrow, his playful grin never faltering. "Sure, that's nice and all," he began, turning the brush over in his hand, the wood smooth against his palm. "But I want something else too." Mizuki looked confused. "What more could you possibly want than becoming a genin?" he asked, his irritation starting to show. Naruto's next words were delivered with the same casualness, but they carried the weight of finality. "I want you die." The simplicity of his statement was chilling. Naruto spoke as if he were commenting on the weather, but the look in his eyes was far more menacing. Mizuki stiffened, his smug smile dropping immediately. "Quit playing games with me," Mizuki barked, but there was a note of unease creeping into his voice. His hand twitched towards his kunai pouch, but he hesitated. Naruto remained silent, his predatory grin widening as the tension thickened in the air. He stood still, hands casually at his sides, but there was an undeniable shift in his presence. It was like standing before a beast in human skin, smiling, waiting to strike. Mizuki scowled. "You're just a worthless orphan. You're nothing, Naruto." Naruto's expression darkened. "Don't say my name," he warned, his voice dropping to a dangerous tone, the playfulness gone, replaced by something much colder. Mizuki glared at him and spat. "Naruto, you're going to die here, you brat." Naruto sighed, almost disappointed. "I warned you." His eyes glinted with a dangerous light. Mizuki opened his mouth to respond, but no sound came out. His eyes widened in shock, and his hand flew to his throat as he struggled to speak. His mouth moved, but no words formed, only strained silence. Panic flashed across his face. Naruto chuckled darkly, watching Mizuki flail. "I told you not to say my name, didn't I? But you couldn't help yourself." His voice was calm, almost amused, as if the situation was nothing more than a game to him. "But it doesn't matter. You won't have to worry about names anymore." Mizuki's panic turned into rage, and with a growl, he reached into his vest, pulling out a small vial filled with a thick, dark liquid. His eyes were wild with desperation as he downed the contents in one gulp. For a moment, nothing happened. Then Mizuki's body began to change. His muscles bulged, fur sprouted from his skin, and his face elongated into a snout. His teeth became razor-sharp, and his hands transformed into clawed paws. In a matter of seconds, Mizuki had become a humanoid tiger, standing on two legs but possessing the raw power and ferocity of a wild beast. Naruto's grin widened. Interesting. He pointed his brush at Mizuki. Well then, I guess it's time to begin. The transformed Mizuki roared, charging at Naruto with terrifying speed. His claws aimed for the boy's throat. But Naruto didn't flinch. In an instant, he vanished, his form flickering out of sight as he used Shuinpa to dodge the attack. Mizuki skidded to a halt, eyes wide as he frantically searched for his prey. But before he could react, Naruto reappeared behind him, his foot slamming into the back of Mizuki's head with a brutal roundhouse kick. The force of the blow sent Mizuki crashing face-first into the ground, creating a small crater. Naruto stood over him, his eyes gleaming with dark amusement. I expected more from a tiger, he said mockingly. Mizuki growled, pushing himself up from the dirt, blood dripping from his snout. He lunged again, swiping at Naruto with his claws, but Naruto effortlessly dodged each strike, his movements a blur as he used Shuinpa to stay one step ahead. This is boring, Naruto yawned, dodging another swipe. Let's make it more fun. With a single flick of his wrist, black ink spilled into the air. The ink hung there for a moment before streaking toward Mizuki, wrapping around him like chains. Mizuki struggled, his claws slashing at the ink, but it was no use. The ink tightened, binding him in place. Naruto smirked. You see, Mizuki, names are important. They define who we are, what we are. Without a name, you're nothing. He twirled the brush between his fingers, the ink swirling around Mizuki. And now you're going to be nothing. With a sharp stroke, Naruto slashed the air, and the ink constricted even tighter around Mizuki. The Tiger Man let out a strangled roar as his body began to wither, his strength fading along with his very identity. Naruto stood over the fallen Mizuki, watching as the once powerful man was reduced to a nameless husk. He let out a satisfied sigh. Well, that was fun. Guess I'll go tell the old man now. Naruto hefted Mizuki's limp body over his shoulder, his eyes still gleaming with amusement from their fight. He glanced at the unconscious traitor, then turned his back to the clearing, preparing to leave. However, the sensation of being watched lingered, the faint rustle of fabric in the shadows confirming his suspicions. The hidden figure finally emerged from the tree-line, slow, deliberate, and utterly confident. Applause echoed through the quiet night as the man clapped, his voice slithering through the air. Well done, boy, the man purred, his tone a blend of amusement and praise. It seems the reports were woefully inaccurate. His serpentine eyes gleamed in the moonlight as he regarded Naruto. Mizuki spoke so much about you, a loudmouth, a failure of a ninja who couldn't even pass the academy exams. The man chuckled darkly. How ironic that the one he looked down upon has now beaten him into the dirt. Naruto stood still, only slightly shifting his gaze toward the man. He wasn't surprised by the sudden praise or the mocking tone behind it. The figure before him had an air of command, an aura that even the most dense person could recognize. And yet, Naruto's grin returned, wider and more predatory than before. That's enough, Orochimaru. Naruto's voice was calm, confident, and devoid of any respect for the infamous figure standing before him. Orochimaru blinked, his eyes widening in genuine surprise. You know who I am? His tone, though still smooth and composed, carried a note of astonishment. Few, especially mere children, would dare utter his name so casually. Naruto adjusted Mizuki's weight on his shoulder. I asked you a question. What do you want? His grin remained plastered on his face, as if this entire situation was nothing more than an entertaining diversion. The surprise melted from Orochimaru's face, replaced by a twisted smile. Impressive, he whispered to himself before meeting Naruto's eyes again. Mizuki underestimated you greatly. It seems I did too. Orochimaru licked his lips, his serpentine tongue flickering out for just a moment. As for why I'm here, Orochimaru paced slowly, his voice taking on a more conversational tone. Mizuki, as you probably guessed, wasn't very bright. His plan, however, was quite simple. Have you steal the forbidden scroll of sealing from the Hokage. Something he was certain you'd be foolish enough to do. Orochimaru's tone dripped with amusement as he recounted the plan. In exchange for delivering the scroll to me, Mizuki wanted power, of course. Naruto raised an eyebrow, though his smirk never faltered. So, you're telling me you tagged along for this scroll? And Mizuki really thought he could barter with you? Orochimaru chuckled, nodding slightly. Indeed, but that's not the only reason I'm here. You see, Mizuki had one thing right. He said you were foolish. He believed you could be manipulated, that you could be used. Orochimaru's golden eyes gleamed with malevolent interest. But when I saw you fight just now, I realized Mizuki's plan had only one flaw. And what was that? Naruto asked, though his tone implied he already knew the answer. Mizuki wasn't the one who should have recruited you, Orochimaru said, his voice a low, hypnotic whisper. I should have. Naruto's smirk grew wider, almost impossibly so. So that's it, huh? You're here to recruit me? Orochimaru nodded slowly, his eyes never leaving Naruto's. A waste, don't you think? Staying here in this village, under the thumb of those who will never see you for what you truly are. The leaf is blind to your potential, Naruto. It would be a shame to watch you waste away here when you could become so much more. Naruto tilted his head slightly, still smiling. I've gotta admit, I'm flattered. A ninja of your caliber interested in me. His voice dripped with sarcasm, and it was clear he wasn't taking the offer seriously at all. Orochimaru's lips curled into a chuckle, his pale face stretching into a snake-like smile. Sarcasm doesn't suit you, boy. You should be thanking me for recognizing your potential. Imagine it, a world where your power is nurtured, where you are free to pursue true strength without restraint. Naruto tossed Mizuki's unconscious body aside like a rag doll, dusting his hands off before drawing his brush from his sash. His movements were slow and deliberate, his eyes narrowing as he pointed the brush directly at Orochimaru. If you think sweet-talking me will work, you're dumber than Mizuki. Naruto didn't flinch, but his eyes glowed with intrigue as Orochimaru suggested. So let's do this the old-fashioned way, Orochimaru suggested, his tone casual but laced with challenge. How about a wager? The loser submits to the winner. Naruto's smile widened further, clearly entertained by the idea. A wager? My, you're an interesting individual, Orochimaru. Very well. I accept. Splendid, Orochimaru. Naruto twirled his brush in his hand, his grin growing even darker. Good. Let's see what the legendary Sannin has to offer. Orochimaru's serpentine eyes gleamed with amusement, but there was something far more dangerous lurking beneath that amusement. He straightened his posture, his long, pale fingers flexing as if preparing for a feast. I hope you're ready, Naruto. This will be more than just a simple test of strength. Naruto laughed, his voice echoing through the empty clearing. I wouldn't want it any other way. Without further hesitation, Naruto exploded into motion, using Shuinpa to close the distance between himself and Orochimaru in the blink of an eye. His speed left the air vibrating with displaced energy, but Orochimaru was no ordinary shinobi. With a wicked grin, the snake Sannin met Naruto's attack head-on, raising his arm to block Naruto's incoming kick. Naruto's knee collided with Orochimaru's forearm with a force that cracked the air, but Orochimaru didn't even flinch. His eyes flashed dangerously as he twisted his body and countered with a powerful roundhouse kick aimed at Naruto's torso. Naruto vanished before the kick could land, reappearing above Orochimaru's head, his brush poised to strike. Orochimaru felt the movement more than saw it, his reflexes kicking in as he dodged sideways, leaving Naruto's brush to carve through the air where his head had been moments ago. Landing gracefully, Naruto pressed forward, launching a series of kicks and punches at Orochimaru, each one aimed with lethal precision. Orochimaru dodged and parried the strikes with serpentine grace, his body twisting and bending unnaturally to avoid the brunt of Naruto's attacks. The two of them danced around each other, the ground beneath them cracking from the sheer force of their clashes. You move well, Naruto-kun? Orochimaru commented as he narrowly avoided a blow aimed at his ribs. But you'll have to do more than that to defeat me. Naruto's grin widened as he leaped back, putting some distance between them. He raised his hand, and in an instant, giant, spectral hands manifested in the air above him. The hands mimicked his movements, growing larger as they loomed over Orochimaru. "Let's see how you handle this," Naruto said, and with a flick of his wrist, the massive spirit hands lunged forward, aiming to crush Orochimaru under their immense size and strength. Orochimaru's eyes narrowed as he summoned a Rashomon gate, the towering structure erupting from the ground just in time to intercept the first spirit hand. The impact shook the forest, but Orochimaru's defense held firm. The second hand, however, swung in from the side, bypassing the gate and crashing toward Orochimaru's exposed flank. With a hiss, Orochimaru spat out his body to evade the strike. The spirit hand smashed into the ground, creating a crater where Orochimaru had been standing. But Naruto wasn't finished. He lunged forward, closing the gap once more, his brush striking toward Orochimaru's arm with deadly precision. The brush didn't cut his flesh, but instead severed the name of Orochimaru's arm. As the brush connected, Naruto smirked. "I've severed your arm's name," he said calmly. "Half of its strength is gone." Orochimaru frowned, sensing something strange in his arm. It didn't hurt, but the limb felt weaker. He flexed his fingers experimentally, realizing Naruto had done something far more dangerous than a physical strike. "You brat," Orochimaru spat. Naruto grinned, his spirit appendages readying themselves for another attack. "That's just the beginning." Orochimaru's smile faded. "I see. Well then, let me show you why I am called a Sannin." With a sudden surge of chakra, Orochimaru clasped his hands together, and the air around him began to crackle with energy.
Doton, Dorida no Jutsu.
Orochimaru called out, slamming his hand into the ground. The earth beneath them rumbled as a massive earthen dragon erupted from the ground, its rocky body twisting and coiling as it roared toward Naruto. Naruto's eyes gleamed as the spirit hands responded, meeting the earthen dragon's assault head-on. The two massive constructs collided with a resounding crash, debris flying in all directions as the dragon tried to overpower the spirit hands. Orochimaru took advantage of the distraction, leaping back and performing another set of hand signs. "Let's see you handle this, Ketan." Ryuka no Jutsu. A torrent of flames burst from Orochimaru's mouth, shaped like a massive dragon of fire. The intense heat scorched the air as the fiery dragon roared toward Naruto, its fanged maw open wide to consume him. Naruto didn't flinch. He raised his hand, and one of his spirit appendages slammed down, meeting the dragon head-on. The flames wrapped around the massive hand but failed to consume it, flickering and dissipating as Naruto redirected the attack into the ground. Orochimaru's eyes narrowed, realizing he would need to step up his game. With a vicious grin, he called out, "Very well, Naruto-kun."
Kuchiyose, Mandara no Hin.
Hundreds of snakes erupted from Orochimaru's sleeves and from the ground beneath him, their fanged mouths hissing as they swarmed toward Naruto in a tidal wave of serpents. The snakes lashed out in every direction, seeking to overwhelm Naruto through sheer numbers. Naruto's spirit hands moved with blinding speed, crushing and swatting the snakes aside as they came. But as each snake was destroyed, more replaced them, slithering across the ground and lunging at him with incredible ferocity. Orochimaru, observing the chaos, took the opportunity to flick his wrist. The legendary sword of Kusanagi shot out from his throat, extending toward Naruto like a spear. Naruto dodged using Shuinpa, appearing behind Orochimaru in a blur of speed. But Orochimaru twisted impossibly, the Kusanagi sword following Naruto's every movement. With each dodge, Naruto's smile grew wider. "You're fast, Naruto-kun," Orochimaru said, his voice echoing ominously as the sword extended even further. "But you can't outrun this forever." Naruto chuckled, his brush glowing with white energy. "Who said I needed to run?" With a flourish, he lifted the brush above his head and called out, "Shinachi, Shirifud Ikamanji." In an instant, the blade of his brush transformed into white bristles, glowing with radiant energy. A large circle of white energy formed around Naruto, pulsing with power. Orochimaru's eyes widened as he sensed the shift in Naruto's aura. Naruto struck Orochimaru with the white energy, writing the kanji for Black Ant on his body. Orochimaru's form flickered for a moment, and a powerful pressure washed over him. He staggered, his strength sapped as his body felt unnaturally weak. "What did you do to me?" Orochimaru hissed, his voice strained. Naruto's grin was positively predatory now. "I gave you a new name. You're as weak as an ant now, Orochimaru. How does it feel?" Orochimaru's eyes blazed with fury, but his body refused to respond. His movements were sluggish, and he could feel the immense drop in power. Naruto stood over him, triumphant, his brush resting on his shoulder once more. "You lost the wager, Orochimaru. Now you'll do as I say." Orochimaru's expression darkened, but he could do nothing. For the first time in years, he had been completely outplayed. Naruto's grin never faltered. "Looks like the predator caught the serpent." The fight was over. Orochimaru, or rather, Black Ant, laid before Naruto, his body weakened and his breath coming in shallow gasps. Yet, even in his diminished state, a faint chuckle escaped his lips. "So, that's your power, huh?" Naruto stood over him, twirling the brush between his fingers, a triumphant smile playing at his lips. "So you figured it out. Your powers?" Black Ant began, his voice rasping but still sharp with curiosity. "Are tied to names. Those who speak your name lose their voice. And that brush of yours, it can strip, steal, half and change the names of others." His yellow eyes glinted, even in his vulnerable state. A terrifying power for anyone who understands what names truly are. Naruto clapped his hands slowly, the sound echoing through the silent forest. "Not bad, Orochi. Well, Black Ant, you've got a sharp mind. Most people wouldn't piece it together so quickly." Black Ant grinned weakly, his muscles twitching as he tried to move. "Flattery doesn't suit you, Naruto-kun. But I'm sure the spectacle we made tonight has already attracted attention. The Leaf Ninjas will be here soon." Naruto's smile didn't falter. In fact, it grew even more confident as he crossed his arms. "You worry too much. I put up a barrier before we fought." Black Ant's eyes widened in shock. His mind raced as he thought back to the moments leading up to their battle, searching for any sign of the barrier Naruto claimed to have erected. Nothing. He hadn't sensed a single fluctuation in chakra, no shift in the air, no hint of a jutsu at all. You're a monster," Black Ant whispered, his voice full of awe and a hint of genuine fear. Naruto raised an eyebrow, amused. "A monster, huh? Coming from you? I'll take that as a compliment." Black Ant's entire body ached from the battle, but the real sting was to his pride. To be reduced to this, him, one of the legendary Sannin, laid low by a child. No, not a child. A monster. Naruto squatted down to meet Black Ant's eye level, his expression shifting from amusement to something colder, more authoritative. "Now, about our little wager." Black Ant's muscles tensed, but he kept his face passive, waiting for Naruto to continue. "You're my underling now," Naruto said, his voice calm, but there was an unmistakable weight behind his words. "But I know you, Orochimaru. You're a snake. You slither and you bite when someone's not looking. You'll try to betray me the first chance you get." Black Ant's eyes narrowed, but he remained silent. Naruto's gaze sharpened, his tone becoming dangerous. "I wouldn't recommend trying anything, because I have another ability. One I haven't used on you yet." "And what technique is that, Naruto-kun?" Black Ant. Naruto leaned in slightly, his eyes glinting with malice as he whispered. "It's a technique that will erase your existence completely. Not just your body, but your soul. No reincarnation, no revival, nothing. You will be wiped from existence, and not even a god will be able to bring you back." For the first time in many years, Black Ant felt a cold bead of sweat drip down the side of his face. His mouth was suddenly dry, and he swallowed the lump that had formed in his throat. The thought of complete and utter erasure, of no chance to return or even exist in any form, chilled him to the core. "You win," Black Ant said reluctantly, his voice barely above a whisper. I'll be your underling. Naruto stood up, satisfied with the answer. His brush hovered over Orochimaru's chest, where the kanji for black ant still glowed faintly, binding his power. With a precise stroke, Naruto erased the kanji and, with a quick flourish, wrote a single character in its place, Maru. Orochimaru felt some of his strength returning, though it was still a fraction of what he once had. He flexed his fingers, testing the flow of his chakra, and found it still weak. Naruto grinned as he straightened up, the brush resting casually on his shoulder. There, I've restored part of your name. You're Maru now. Maru? Orochimaru whispered the name, his lips curling into a sneer at the indignity. Naruto glanced down at him, his expression almost playful now. Be a good boy, Maru, and maybe I'll restore the rest of your name. Orochimaru. Now Maru looked up at Naruto, a mixture of hatred and respect simmering in his golden eyes. He knew that for now he had no choice but to obey. His time would come, but until then he would play along. Maru stayed on the ground for a moment longer, watching the boy's retreating form. Monster didn't even begin to describe what Naruto was. And so, the serpent slithered away from the predator, his mind racing with thoughts of revenge and survival, all while plotting his return to power. Chapter 3. The Monk Who Calls the Real Name. Naruto landed silently in the Hokage's office, dragging a dazed Mizuki, now nothing alongside him. The ink smeared across Mizuki's body left him a husk of his former self. Hiruzen, startled by their sudden appearance, blinked in shock. Naruto? What is the meaning of this? And why is Mizuki covered in ink? Naruto, standing tall with an air of confidence, looked Hiruzen in the eye. He tried to make me steal the forbidden scroll, and then he tried to kill me. Hiruzen's eyes narrowed as he studied Mizuki, realizing the truth behind Naruto's words. He gestured to the ANBU guards standing by. Take him away. The ANBU swiftly moved in, grabbing Mizuki and escorted him out of the room. The ink on his body shimmered faintly in the low light. Hiruzen let out a slow breath. Naruto, how exactly did you manage to take down Mizuki? And that ink? What is it? Naruto, cryptic, simply replied, I am the master of all black, and I know the true names of every living thing. Hiruzen's brows furrowed as he let out a deep sigh. It was clear Naruto wasn't going to give him more than that. The boy was different now, more than just the child he had once known. I see, Hiruzen muttered. In that case, I'll officially promote you to Genin for your efforts. You've done well. Naruto simply nodded, as if the promotion was expected. 2 days later at the academy, Iruka stood before the assembled students, a smile on his face as he congratulated them on becoming Genin. This is just the beginning, he said warmly. Work hard, and you'll achieve even more. The classroom was filled with excited chatter, but Iruka quickly moved on to the next topic, team placements. Before we get to the teams, I want to remind you that the teams are not permanent. You'll rotate both your teammates and sensei as time goes on. Excitement buzzed in the room as Iruka began to announce the teams. Team 7, Naruto Uzumaki, Shikamaru Nara, and Hinata Hyuga. Your sensei will be Asuma Sarutobi. A wave of murmurs rippled through the classroom. Eyes turned toward Naruto's empty seat in disbelief. Kiba, ever the loudmouth, voiced what many were thinking. How did Naruto pass? Iruka's face fell, remembering the difficult news Hiruzen had shared with him about Mizuki's betrayal. The boy deserved his place, but explaining that wasn't simple. Naruto took a makeup exam, Iruka said quickly, forcing a smile. Kiba grumbled, but Iruka moved on. Team 8, Sasuke Uchiha, Ino Yamanaka, and Kiba Inuzuka. Sensei Kurenai Yuhi. Team 10, Sakura Haruno, Shino Aburame, and Choji Akimichi. Sensei Kakashi Hataki. After announced the placements, Iruka offered a final word of encouragement before leaving the classroom. The students were left to chat amongst themselves while waiting for their new senseis to arrive. In one corner of the room, Hinata sat quietly, a small, shy smile on her face. She was glad Naruto had passed. Even though he wasn't here right now, she had always admired his determination. She wondered what kind of ninja he would become. Meanwhile, Sakura and Ino were arguing over who should sit next to Sasuke, as the boy in question simply tuned them out. Across the room, Shino sat alone, his quiet demeanor keeping others at a distance. It wasn't long before Asuma walked in, his presence immediately noticed by Shikamaru. "Where's Naruto?" Asuma asked with a raised brow. Shikamaru yawned, resting his head on his hand. "Probably sleeping in. Honestly, I wish I did the same." Ino, still in earshot, shot Shikamaru a glare. "You're so lazy, Shikamaru. You'll never get anywhere like that." Shikamaru merely shrugged, unaffected by her scolding. "Maybe, but it's too much of a drag to care." Asuma sighed, rubbing the back of his neck. "Well, I suppose we should go fetch him. Come on." Before they could move, the door slid open and Naruto appeared in the doorway, standing confidently. "No need," he said, his voice filled with energy. "I'm right here." Asuma smiled slightly. "Good timing. Let's go." At the barbecue shop, the scent of sizzling meat filled the air as Team 7 sat around a table, Asuma introducing himself properly. "Asuma Sarutobi. My hobbies are playing shogi, especially with Shikamaru." He glanced at the boy. "My dream is to see what the next generation will accomplish." Shikamaru, barely paying attention, muttered, "And one day to go out with Kurinai." Asuma's face flushed red, and he quickly cleared his throat. "That's, not part of the introduction, Shikamaru." Naruto smirked at the exchange, while Hinata tried to suppress a small giggle. "All right, Shikamaru, you're next," Asuma said. Shikamaru sighed. "Why bother? You already know everything about me. I like sleeping, I'm lazy, and life's too much of a drag." Naruto chuckled. "Lazy bum loves to sleep, that's for sure." Shikamaru gave him a lazy nod of acknowledgement. "Yeah, pretty much." Asuma let out a long sigh. "Hinata, your turn." Hinata sat up straight, her cheeks tinged pink as she nervously introduced herself. I'm Hinata Hyuga. My hobby is pressing flowers. I love cinnamon rolls, and my goal is to become a strong, reliable ninja and to abolish the Hyuga clan's cursed seal." Asuma smiled warmly at her. "That's a wonderful goal, Hinata. I look forward to seeing you become a splendid ninja." Blushing even more, Hinata nodded shyly. Thank you, Asuma-sensei." Finally, Naruto's turn came, and true to form, he made his entrance as loudly as possible. "I'm Naruto Uzumaki, the monk who calls the real name." Shikamaru and Asuma blinked in surprise. A monk? The beads around Naruto's neck and his shaved head certainly fit. But the monk who calls the real name? What did that mean? Curiosity burned in Asuma's eyes as he exchanged a look with Shikamaru, who seemed equally intrigued. "What do you mean by that?" Asuma asked, unable to hold back his question. Naruto, sensing their interest, smirked. "I have the ability to identify the true names of all living things." Shikamaru raised an eyebrow, his laziness momentarily giving way to genuine curiosity. "True names, huh? That's interesting. So what, you know everyone's real identity or something?" Asuma leaned forward slightly, his interest piqued. "That's a pretty unique ability, Naruto." Naruto crossed his arms, feeling the weight of their gazes. "It's something like that. You'll see in time." Satisfied with the mystery he'd left hanging, Naruto continued his introduction. "My hobbies? Painting and drawing calligraphy." He paused, looking thoughtful for a moment. "As for my goal, I don't really have one." Asuma frowned slightly, but he didn't push. Instead, he smiled and leaned back. "Well, goals change. Maybe you'll find one along the way." Naruto shrugged, but inwardly, he knew that his path was already set. The world just didn't know it yet. Chapter 4. The test begins. After they finished eating, Asuma pushed back his chair and gave his students a lazy smile. "All right, that's enough for today. Get your gear ready for tomorrow. We'll be heading out for a mission." Without another word, he left the restaurant, leaving them to process the information. Shikamaru groaned, already sensing what was coming. "A mission, huh? Already?" He sighed, leaning back in his seat, eyes half-lidded. "Troublesome." Naruto couldn't help but chuckle. Hinata was too shy to say anything but was clearly anxious. Her hands fidgeted with the hem of her jacket as she stole a glance at Naruto. "A mission already?" She wasn't sure if she was ready for this, but she didn't want to look weak in front of her teammates. The next day, Asuma met them at the gate early the next morning, his usual cigarette hanging from his lips. "All right, today's mission is to deliver this scroll to the land of waves." Shikamaru immediately raised an eyebrow. A mission this important for a team that's barely formed? His mind raced through the implications, but in typical fashion, he didn't bother saying anything. Complaining about it would only make it more of a hassle. Hinata's nerves were on edge, but she was determined to prove herself useful. She stayed close to the group, trying to suppress her anxiety. Naruto saw through Asuma's lies, but simply chuckled. Shikamaru and Hinata didn't feel their chakra get disrupted. Naruto felt this, but didn't comment on this. His suspicions were confirmed as he felt that Asuma was the only one whose chakra wasn't disrupted. As they walked through the forest, Naruto could sense subtle movements in the trees around them. 2 chakra signatures trailed behind them, faint but detectable. There they are, he thought, keeping his face impassive. Let's see what happens next. Suddenly, lightning erupted from the sky, striking Asuma with brutal force. The blast sent him flying into a nearby tree, smoke rising from his charred clothing. His team wasn't close enough to get caught in the attack, but the sight of their sensei's lifeless body was enough to shock them. Hinata froze, her heart pounding. Her eyes widened in horror. "Asuma-sensei," she whispered, her voice trembling. Her mind raced, overwhelmed by fear and confusion. How could this happen? She could feel her legs start to shake, but she forced herself to remain upright. Shikamaru's jaw clenched as he tried to make sense of what was happening. He wasn't emotional like Hinata, but the sight of Asuma lying lifeless on the ground left him uneasy. His mind spun with possibilities, but no matter how much he hated it, there was only one conclusion. Their sensei was dead. What a drag. Naruto, however, remained calm, his expression unreadable. He knew better. It's all part of the test. He glanced at the 2 assailants who emerged from the trees, walking casually toward Asuma's body. They rifled through his clothing, but their expressions turned to frustration when they found nothing. One of them turned to the team, his eyes narrowing. "Where's the scroll?" Naruto held up the scroll in his hand with a smug grin. "Looking for this? Come and get it if you want it." He turned to his teammates and whispered under his breath, "Relax, figure it out." Then, in a blur of motion, he vanished into the forest, with one of the assailants chasing after him. Shikamaru's mind raced. Figure it out? What's there to figure out? Suma's dead. He wanted to groan, feeling the weight of the situation press down on him. Hinata tried activating her Byakugan, but something felt off. Her vision blurred, the familiar clarity of her dojutsu distorted as if looking through a fog. What's happening?" she whispered, her voice laced with panic. The remaining assailant stepped forward with a cruel grin. "You two are going to die here." He rushed at them, moving with speed far beyond what they were prepared for. Hinata instinctively dropped into her gentle fist stance. Without her Byakugan, she would be going in blind, but she had no other choice. The assailant lunged at her, and she stepped to the side, thrusting her palm toward his chest. But her attack missed entirely, hitting nothing but air. Shikamaru joined in. His attempts to ensnare their opponent with his shadow proved futile. Shikamaru stood frozen, trying to piece together what was happening. Naruto said to figure it out. "What are we missing?" He watched as Hinata's attacks failed to land, each one swiping through the air as if the enemy wasn't even there. Suddenly, it hit him. "This isn't real. Hinata!" Shikamaru shouted, moving toward her. "It's a genjutsu." Hinata turned to him, confused. "1. Jijinjutsu." Shikamaru nodded, his eyes narrowing. "None of this is real. Asuma's not dead. The assailants aren't real either. We've been caught in a powerful illusion." Hinata's breath hitched, but she nodded. She bit her lip, trying to focus her chakra. Her palms pressed together as she focused on disrupting the flow within her body. Shikamaru did the same, and with a burst of willpower, they both broke free of the genjutsu's hold. The world around them shimmered and then snapped back into focus. The two of them blinked as reality returned. Asuma was standing off to the side, very much alive, watching them with a calm smile. The assailant that had attacked them was gone, and standing in their place was Kurenai Yuhi, arms folded, a faint smirk playing on her lips. "Well, well," Kurenai said, her voice smooth. "Looks like you two figured it out." Shikamaru let out a long sigh, slumping his shoulders. "Troublesome." Hinata let out a relieved breath, her heart still pounding from the shock of it all. She felt the weight of the moment lift as she realized that none of it had been real, and Asuma-sensei was safe. Asuma chuckled. "Not bad, both of you. You handled yourselves pretty well, considering." Shikamaru shook his head. "So this was a test from the beginning." Naruto returned then, the scroll still in hand, grinning widely. "Took you long enough." He tossed the scroll to Asuma, who caught it effortlessly. Naruto leaped through the forest with a steady, controlled rhythm, his face calm as he effortlessly moved through the branches. He wasn't in any particular hurry. After all, his opponent was part of the test, and he could sense that his teammates were faring well enough. This was nothing more than an exercise for him, a mere warm-up. The figure closing in behind him grew more distinct. The man's chakra was strong, but Naruto didn't feel even a flicker of concern. In fact, he didn't even need to look back to know who it was. He had already identified the man as Kakashi Hatake, the infamous copy ninja of Konoha. Naruto's lips curled into a small smile. This should be interesting. He came to a sudden stop atop a large tree branch, casually turning to face his pursuer. "You've led me on quite the chase," Kakashi said, his voice low and gruff. Due to the genjutsu, his appearance also looked different. "But this is the end of the line, kid. Hand over that scroll." "Kakashi." Naruto's lips curled into a smirk. "Sorry, I don't feel like it." Kakashi chuckled darkly, pulling out a kunai. "I was hoping you'd say that." His hands flew into a series of hand signs, faster than Naruto had expected. "Let's see how long you can last." In an instant, Kakashi slammed his hands into the ground. "Doton. Yumi Numa." Earth release. Swamp of the underworld. The earth beneath Naruto's feet liquefied, transforming into a deep, muddy swamp that began swallowing everything, dragging trees into its depths. Naruto, however, was already prepared. With a single step, he vanished from the swamp's grasp, reappearing mid-air with a burst of Shuinpa, as if he had never been there. His eyes glinted with amusement as he watched the swamp churn below him. "Is that the best you've got?" Naruto teased. Kakashi's eyes narrowed, but he didn't respond. Instead, he weaved another set of hand signs. Suetun, Suryuden no Jutsu, water release, water dragon bullet technique. The air hummed with chakra as an enormous water dragon erupted from the nearby trees, its serpentine body twisting toward Naruto with incredible speed. The dragon's roar shook the forest as it struck with the force of a tidal wave. Naruto didn't flinch. Instead, he raised his hand, pointing 2 fingers toward the incoming dragon. Heido number 33, Sokatsui. Blue fire, crash down. A blast of blue energy surged from Naruto's fingers, slamming into the water dragon with explosive force. The resulting clash sent shockwaves through the air, evaporating the water dragon in an instant. Kakashi's eyes widened briefly, but he recovered quickly. "You're full of surprises, aren't you? But I'm far from done." Before Naruto could respond, Kakashi disappeared in a blur, reappearing directly in front of him with his kunai aimed at Naruto's throat. His speed and precision were impressive. Any other genin would have fallen to the strike. But Naruto was no ordinary shinobi. He sidestepped the attack with grace, twisting his body to dodge the strike. Kakashi pressed forward, launching a flurry of punches and kicks, each one aimed with deadly precision. Naruto deflected them with ease. The forest echoed with the sound of fists colliding with air, and sparks flew as Kakashi's kunai clashed against Naruto's spiritual energy. Naruto's eyes gleamed with excitement. Kakashi was a skilled opponent, not on Maru's level, but he was certainly skilled. As Kakashi attempted to land another blow, Naruto thrust his hand forward. Bakudo number 61, Rikujikoro, 6 rods prison of light. 6 beams of golden light erupted from Naruto's palm, slamming into Kakashi's midsection and pinning him in place. Kakashi grunted, his body frozen in the air by the Kido spell. But instead of panic, a dangerous smile spread across his face. "Nice trick, kid, but I've faced worse." With a surge of chakra, Kakashi substituted himself with a log. Kakashi created earthhounds, charging toward Naruto with fangs bared. Naruto's hands moved in a blur. Bakudo number 73, Tazansho, inverted mountain crystal, a transparent, pyramid-shaped barrier formed around Naruto, deflecting the hound's attacks. They collided with the barrier, their teeth scraping uselessly against the surface. Naruto lowered the barrier with a flick of his wrist, vanishing again with Shuinpa and reappearing behind the hounds. Hado number 31, Shikaho, red flame cannon. A sphere of crimson energy formed in Naruto's hand before he unleashed it toward the hounds. The blast struck the ground with a fiery explosion, destroying them. Kakashi gritted his teeth as he surveyed the battlefield. Naruto had already demonstrated formidable power, far beyond that of a typical genin. He wasn't to be taken lightly. "Let's see how you handle this," Kakashi said, performing another series of rapid hand signs.
Zaiten, Yan.
Lightning release, false darkness. Twin bolts of lightning crackled through the air, forming into sharp, spear-like projectiles that flew toward Naruto with blinding speed. Naruto's response was instantaneous. Bakudo number 81, Danku, splitting void, asterisk. A translucent barrier appeared in front of him, absorbing the lightning spears as they collided with it, leaving Naruto unharmed. Kakashi's frustration was evident now. His chakra reserves were running out. It irritated him that Naruto countered each one of his jutsu with ease. Naruto's eyes narrowed as he decided to end it. "You're strong," he admitted, "but this is the end for you." Kakashi braced himself. Naruto raised his hand to the sky, summoning an enormous amount of spiritual pressure. The air around him crackled with energy as he muttered, "Hado number 90, Kurohitsuji." Black coffin, a massive black box formed around Kakashi, its walls etched with dark energy. The box slammed shut, trapping Kakashi inside. The crushing force within the black coffin was overwhelming, tearing at his body with sheer pressure. Kakashi enhanced himself with chakra. His scream was muffled as his chakra was being suppressed by the Kido's power. When the black coffin faded, Kakashi grunted in pain, his body weakened but still intact. "Kakashi Hatake," Naruto said suddenly, his voice cutting through the air like a blade. Kakashi froze, his eye widening slightly at the sound of his full name. Naruto smirked, his gaze never leaving Kakashi's. "That's right. I know who you are. I know more than just your reputation as the copy ninja. I know your true name." Kakashi's breath caught in his throat. He hadn't mentioned his name at any point during their encounter, and Asuma hadn't briefed Naruto about him either. Yet, this boy had just spoken his name without hesitation. Naruto's smirk grew wider. "Oh, don't be so shocked. Asuma didn't tell you, did he? I have the ability to identify the true names of all living things. Nobody can hide their identity from me, not even you." Kakashi was silent, his mind racing as he processed Naruto's words. The ability to know someone's true name. It was a power unlike anything he had encountered before. "Now," Naruto continued, his tone more serious, "are we done here? Or are you going to keep testing me?" Kakashi knew he had reached his limit. This wasn't a battle he could win, not under these conditions. And perhaps more importantly, this test wasn't about defeating Naruto. It was about gauging his abilities. With a sigh, Kakashi relented. "You're right. There's no point in continuing, you've already passed." Naruto's expression remained calm, almost indifferent. "Good call." Without another word, Naruto turned his back to Kakashi, walking away as if the battle had never even happened. Kakashi sat there for a moment, watching Naruto's retreating figure, 1,000 thoughts running through his mind. As soon as Naruto disappeared from sight, Kakashi pulled out a familiar orange book, Aika Aika Paradise. Flipping it open, he allowed himself a small chuckle, though his thoughts remained on Naruto. "Naruto's power. It's unreal," Kakashi muttered to himself. "He's not just some genin, being able to use such high-level techniques without breaking a sweat." He's a genius. He closed his book and glanced up at the sky, a thoughtful expression crossing his face. Looks like I'll have to keep an eye on him. There's no telling what he's capable of. Naruto returned to his teammates soon after, the scroll still in hand. Took you long enough, he said with a grin, tossing the scroll to Asuma, who caught it effortlessly. Shikamaru shook his head. So this was a test from the beginning. Welcome to the real world of ninja, Asuma said. You'll face things far worse than a genjutsu in the future, so get used to it. Hinata smiled softly, feeling a sense of pride welling up inside her. She had survived her first real test, and while it had been terrifying, she knew she had grown from the experience. Shikamaru, on the other hand, just shook his head, muttering under his breath about how much of a hassle it all was. Naruto stretched, clearly unaffected by the whole ordeal. Well, that was fun. What's next? Asuma asked where Kakashi was. With a scary expression, Naruto told them, I killed him. Seeing their shocked expressions, Naruto told them, relax, I am joking. He chuckled. Asuma arched a brow at Naruto, visibly trying to shake off the initial shock of his words. Joking, huh? He muttered, his tone heavy with suspicion. You've got a twisted sense of humor, Naruto. Shikamaru groaned, rubbing the back of his head as he shot Naruto an unimpressed look. Troublesome. Hinata, on the other hand, merely smiled, relieved that Naruto had returned safely and apparently unfazed. The tension from earlier seemed to melt away in the wake of Naruto's nonchalance, but there was still a lingering air of curiosity surrounding what exactly had happened between him and Kakashi. Naruto smirked, clearly enjoying the attention. Relax, he's fine, just taking a break. He waved off their concerns, but there was something in his eyes, something that hinted at the fact he had something interesting happen during his encounter with Kakashi. Asuma watched Naruto carefully, his gaze sharpening. A break, huh? What kind of break exactly? Naruto shrugged nonchalantly. The kind where he needs to rethink some things. Asuma frowned, crossing his arms over his chest. You're too calm about this. Kakashi is not someone to be taken lightly, even for a joke. Naruto's eyes glinted, his smirk widening slightly as he crossed his arms, mirroring Asuma's stance. I know, that's what makes it fun. Before Asuma could press further, Shikamaru intervened, clearly wanting to avoid another long-winded discussion. So, can we be done with this test now? I'd rather get back to something less troublesome, like cloud watching. Asuma sighed, shaking his head. You're never going to change, are you, Shikamaru? The lazy genius grunted in response, clearly unbothered. Not if I can help it. Naruto chuckled softly, turning his attention to Hinata, who had been quiet but observant. You all right, Hinata? You did well out there. Hinata blushed faintly, her eyes flickering between Naruto and the ground. Thank you.
Naruto-kun.
I am just glad I didn't get in the way. Naruto's expression softened, his usual teasing demeanor shifting into something more genuine. You weren't in the way. You are part of the team. You passed just like the rest of us. Hinata's face brightened at his words, her lips curving into a shy but warm smile. She nodded quietly, her confidence bolstered by his praise. Asuma took a deep breath, glancing at the three genins standing before him. All right, you've passed this stage, but don't think it's going to get any easier from here on out. The life of a shinobi is full of unexpected challenges, and this was just a taste of what's to come. Naruto stretched his arms over his head, looking as carefree as ever. Yeah, we get it. More tests, more missions, more fighting. I'm ready, Shikamaru sighed. More like more headaches. Asuma couldn't help but chuckle at the contrast between Naruto's enthusiasm and Shikamaru's apathy. You'll get used to it. He turned to Hinata, who was still quietly standing off to the side. Hinata, you did great today. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise. Hinata blushed again, bowing her head respectfully. Thank you, sensei. Asuma smiled, but there was a seriousness in his eyes as he continued. Remember this, strength isn't just about power or technique. It's about how you use your mind and your heart in battle. Keep that in mind as we move forward. Naruto nodded, his expression a bit more thoughtful now. Right? Got it. Just as Asuma was about to wrap things up, a figure appeared in the distance, casually strolling toward them with his nose buried in a familiar orange book. "Kakashi," Asuma said, turning his head. "Glad you decided to join us again." Kakashi looked up from his book, his expression as unreadable as ever beneath his mask. "Sorry, I got a little caught up in something." Naruto smirked knowingly, but said nothing. Kakashi's single visible eye flicked toward Naruto for a brief moment before he turned his attention back to Asuma. "Your students did well today. They're promising." Asuma nodded. "They are your students as much as they are mine." Kakashi closed his book with a soft snap, slipping it back into his pouch. "That they are." The tension that had been present earlier seemed to dissipate entirely as Kakashi's casual demeanor reassured the group. Whatever had happened between him and Naruto was over now, and there was no need to dwell on it further. At least not for the moment. "So, what now?" Shikamaru asked, clearly hoping for a break. Asuma gave him a wry smile. "Now we head back to the village. You've earned some rest." Naruto grinned, clearly pleased with the outcome. "Finally, I could use some ramen." Hinata glanced at Naruto, her eyes softening at the mention of his favorite food. "I'd like that too." Shikamaru sighed but didn't protest. "Fine, but I'm not paying for everyone's meal." Asuma chuckled, motioning for the team to follow him as they made their way back toward the village. "Let's go. You've all earned a break." As they moved through the forest, Naruto couldn't help but glance over his shoulder at Kakashi, who was now walking a short distance behind them. Their earlier encounter was still fresh in his mind, and though Kakashi had played it cool, Naruto knew he had left an impression. Kakashi, for his part, simply smiled beneath his mask, his thoughts hidden behind that ever-present air of mystery. "Sensei, your son, really is something else," Kakashi thought to himself. "Looks like things are going to get interesting from here on out." The chapter opens within the chambers of the Hokage's office. Hiruzen Sarutobi, the third Hokage, sits at his desk, his sharp eyes narrowing thoughtfully as Asuma Sarutobi, Kurenai Yuhi, and Kakashi Hatake stand before him. After exchanging pleasantries, Asuma gets straight to the point, his tone neutral but confident. "Hokage-sama, we are here to report that Team 7 passed the test." Hiruzen takes a slow drag from his pipe, the smoke curling upward as he ponders. His gaze then shifts to Kurenai and Asuma. How long did it take for them to realize they were in Kurenai's genjutsu? Kurenai exchanges a glance with Asuma before answering, her voice calm but laced with a slight undertone of concern. Shikamaru realized it, but it took him quite some time. As for Hinata, she never realized she was in the genjutsu. Hiruzen's brow furrows slightly, but Kurenai continues quickly, anticipating any misjudgment. "It wasn't due to a lack of skill, Hokage-sama. I made sure to use a particularly powerful genjutsu, one that specifically blocked Hinata from using her Byakugan. I wanted to test her ability to cope without it." Hiruzen nods, satisfied by the explanation, though there's a glint of worry in his eyes. "I see. And Naruto?" Kakashi, who has been quiet up until now, steps forward. "Naruto most likely saw through the genjutsu from the beginning." Hiruzen didn't look too surprised. "From the beginning, huh?" He continues, "Did Naruto display power beyond that of a genin during the test?" Kakashi's usual relaxed demeanor is tempered with a rare seriousness. "Yes," he replies plainly. "Naruto's power far surpasses that of a genin. If I'm being honest, it's more on the level of a jonin, maybe higher." Asuma lets out a low whistle of disbelief, his brow furrowing. "Are you serious, Kakashi?" Kakashi nods, his tone steady. "I'm not joking. The boy is something else. During the test, he used highly advanced techniques, ones that involved energy manipulation I've never seen before. He called them Bakudo and Heido. They were used both offensively and defensively, and he executed them in quick succession without any visible effort." Kurenai's expression hardens, her posture rigid as she processes the information. "So he's another genius, then?" she says, her voice thoughtful but slightly apprehensive. Her mind drifts to the memory of another child prodigy. "I only hope he doesn't follow the same path as Itachi." A heavy silence falls over the room, the mention of Itachi Uchiha bringing back difficult memories for all present. Kakashi and Asuma remain silent, their expressions sober. Asuma breaks the silence with a deep breath. It's our job to make sure that doesn't happen. Naruto's powerful, but he's still a kid. It's up to us as his teachers to guide him, make sure he stays on the right path. Hiruzen, who had remained contemplative throughout the exchange, nods in agreement. Yes, it is your duty, not just with Naruto, but with all of your students. They each hold potential, and it is your responsibility to help them grow into strong, capable shinobi. He leans forward slightly, his hands resting on the desk, his expression firm but fatherly. Naruto's future is not set in stone. Remember, strength is a tool, but how it's used determines the person's path. Guide him well. The three Jonin nod in unison, understanding the weight of the task ahead of them. Asuma and Kurenai exchange a glance, both silently acknowledging the unique challenge Naruto presents, not just because of his power, but because of the heavy burdens he carries. Hiruzen takes another deep breath, the smoke from his pipe swirling in the air. You may go. The three Jonin bow respectfully before turning to leave. As they walk out of the Hokage's office, the weight of their conversation lingers in the air between them. They are aware that Naruto, though still just a boy, could shape the future of Konoha, perhaps even the world. As they part ways, Kakashi lingers for a moment, casting a glance back towards the Hokage Tower. His thoughts are on Naruto, his strange powers, his incredible speed, and his potential. He can't help but feel that the real challenge is only just beginning. Chapter 7, The True Test. The day after Team 7's test, the early morning sun filtered through the trees, casting long shadows across the clearing where Team 10 stood, facing their Jonin sensei, Kakashi Hatake. The infamous copy ninja stood before them, holding two small bells in his hand, their metallic jingles the only sound breaking the silence. Kakashi's one visible eye was as unreadable as ever, giving no hint of emotion as he twirled the bells. Your objective is simple, he said, his voice calm but carrying the weight of an unspoken challenge. You need to take these bells from me. Shino Aburame adjusted his sunglasses slightly, his face impassive as always. His mind, however, was already processing the situation, analyzing the details of the task. 2 bells for 3 genin, and one of them was going to fail. It was a classic setup. Choji Akimichi shifted nervously beside him, his eyes wide with concern. Sakura Haruno, on the other hand, looked visibly panicked, her thoughts clearly running wild. But there are only 2 bells, Sakura exclaimed, pointing toward the small trinkets dangling from Kakashi's hand. Does that mean? That's right, Kakashi interrupted smoothly, his tone deceptively casual. One of you will be returning to the academy. At this, Choji's anxiety increased, and he gulped audibly. Sakura looked like she was on the verge of a meltdown. Shino, on the other hand, remained composed, though his thoughts were racing beneath the surface. The 2-bell dilemma was designed to pit them against each other, Shino realized. But Kakashi wasn't one to rely on such straightforward tactics. This test was more complex than it appeared on the surface. Kakashi's voice broke Shino's thoughts. Remember, he said, his gaze sweeping over the 3 of them. Come at me with the intent to kill. Anything less won't be enough. The tension in the air heightened. The Jonin set a small clock on a nearby stump, the hands ticking away quietly. You have until noon, Kakashi said before he nonchalantly added, begin. In an instant, the 3 genin dispersed, each heading in a different direction, seeking cover among the trees. Kakashi watched them go with a bemused smile, his sharp eye already tracking their movements. He targeted Sakura first. Sakura was running, her heart pounding in her chest. She glanced back, trying to spot Kakashi, but he was nowhere to be seen. Suddenly, her surroundings shifted, the trees twisting and warping into a distorted vision. Without warning, she found herself standing in front of Sasuke, his body battered and broken, blood pooling beneath him. Sasuke? Sakura's voice wavered as her body froze in place. In the illusion, Sasuke coughed weakly, his hand reaching out toward her before his body slumped lifelessly to the ground.
No.
Sasuke! Sakura screamed in horror, her knees buckling as she collapsed. Her mind couldn't process the scene before her. It felt so real. She reached for him, but her hand passed through thin air. Her mind shattered under the pressure, and with a soft gasp, she fainted, falling limp on the forest floor. From a distance, Kakashi observed her with a sigh. "Fangirl," he muttered to himself. Meanwhile, Choji and Shino regrouped, both kneeling in the shade of a large tree. Choji's face was pale, his nervous energy clear as he fidgeted with his hands. "What do you think of the test?" Shino asked, his voice calm and deliberate. Choji hesitated. I don't know. It seems tough, but we just need to get the bells, right?" He scratched the back of his head, unsure of himself. "I mean, only 2 of us can pass." Shino's mind raced, trying to put the pieces together. He already had a strong suspicion about what this test was really about, but he needed to lead Choji to the answer. "Tell me, Choji, how many members are in a ninja team?" Choji blinked, caught off guard by the question. He thought for a moment, and then his eyes lit up as he remembered his father's stories. 3, Uncle Inoichi, Uncle Shikaku, and my dad. They're a 3-man team. Shino nodded slowly, letting Choji arrive at the next conclusion on his own. Exactly, and yet Kakashi only has 2 bells. Choji's eyes widened as the realization began to sink in. Wait, if a team has 3 members, but only 2 can pass, then the bells are a farce, Shino concluded, his voice steady. The real test is something else. Choji looked confused. But what is it then? Shino turned to face him fully. Think about it. What is the most important quality that your father's team, Ino Shikacho, are known for? Choji's face lit up with understanding. Teamwork. Shino gave a small smile behind his high collar. Exactly. Kakashi-sensei isn't testing our individual strength or skill. He's testing whether we can work together. If we try to act alone, none of us will pass. Choji's shoulders relaxed slightly as the weight of the task became clearer. So we have to team up. Shino nodded. We need to find Sakura and regroup. Unbeknownst to them, Kakashi was observing their conversation from afar, hidden in the branches of a tree. He smiled to himself. Smart kid, he thought. Shino's already figured out the real point of the exercise. The 2 boys moved through the forest, tracking Sakura's location. It didn't take them long to find her collapsed on the ground, her breathing shallow as she mumbled Sasuke's name. Shino kneeled beside her, his hand resting gently on her forehead. She's caught in a genjutsu, Shino said calmly, his fingers weaving through a few hand signs before his bugs swarmed around her. They worked quickly, disrupting the flow of chakra and breaking the illusion. Sakura's eyes shot open as she gasped, her body jerking awake. Sasuke, she cried, looking around wildly. You were in a genjutsu, Shino explained evenly. Kakashi-sensei used it to disorient you. Sakura blinked, her face flushed with embarrassment as she realized what had happened. That jerk, she muttered, clenching her fists. He made me see Sasuke dead. That wasn't fair. Shino remained calm as ever. It was meant to throw you off, but we've figured out the true nature of the test. It's about teamwork. Sakura's eyes widened in surprise. Teamwork? But what about the bells? They're not the point, Shino said, standing up. The only way for us to pass is to work together. Sakura's face twisted in thought before she huffed, shaking her head. That sneaky bastard, she muttered under her breath. Okay, so what's the plan? Shino adjusted his glasses. We need to use our strengths. Choji, your expansion jutsu will be key. You can serve as both an offensive and defensive tool, pushing Kakashi-sensei into positions where we need him. My bugs will be useful in tracking him, disrupting and absorbing his chakra. As for you, Sakura, he paused. Considering what role Sakura could play, she's useless. While she hadn't shown many remarkable skills yet, Shino knew they could make use of her intelligence and timing. You'll be the strategist. I need you to focus on finding openings. While Choji and I pressure him, you look for moments where we can strike at the bells. Sakura blinked, clearly surprised by the responsibility Shino was entrusting to her. But after a moment, she nodded. Right? I'll do my best. With their roles set, Shino led them back into the forest, each of them moving with purpose now, no longer divided by panic or fear. The battle began swiftly. Choji, using his partial expansion jutsu, enlarged his fists, swinging them toward Kakashi like wrecking balls. Kakashi danced around the attacks, but Shino's bugs swarmed in from the sides, forcing him to keep moving. Kakashi smiled under his mask, impressed by their coordination. "Not bad," he muttered, flipping over Choji's fist and landing gracefully on a branch. But that was when Sakura struck. She had been watching carefully, waiting for the exact moment when Kakashi would land. With precise timing, she hurled several kunai at his position, forcing Kakashi to dodge midair. The brief moment of instability gave Choji and Shino the chance they needed. Choji extended his arms, grabbing for Kakashi, while Shino's bugs swarmed from below. Kakashi evaded them by a hair's breadth, but in doing so, he was forced into a vulnerable position, right in front of Shino. Shino's hand shot out, his bugs surging toward the bells. Kakashi's eye widened slightly in surprise at how close they had gotten. With a single flick of his wrist, Shino's bugs formed into a hand, snagging one of the bells, pulling it back toward the team. Sakura caught it in midair, her eyes wide in shock. Kakashi landed softly on the ground. He raised his hands in mock surrender, chuckling softly. "Impressive teamwork, Team 10. I didn't expect you all to figure it out so quickly." Sakura, still holding the bell, stared at Kakashi with a mix of excitement and disbelief. "We actually did it!" she exclaimed, her voice barely able to conceal her glee. Shino adjusted his sunglasses, feeling a sense of accomplishment wash over him. "This is only the beginning. We need to get the second bell before he recovers." Kakashi raised an eyebrow, intrigued by their sudden shift in energy. "Oh? And what makes you think you can get another bell?" "Because we're not going to give up," Choji declared, his confidence renewed. He focused his chakra, preparing to unleash his expansion jutsu once again. The ground trembled as his body grew larger and bulkier, ready for action. "Let's go, then," Sakura urged, determined to secure victory for their team. Kakashi observed their teamwork, a proud smile creeping onto his face. "I admire your passion, but I'm not going to make this easy for you." With a burst of speed, he dodged Choji's massive fists and leapt into the air, ready for another counterattack. "Now, Shino," Sakura called out, her voice cutting through the tension like a blade. Shino's bugs swarmed forward in unison, obscuring Kakashi's vision for a brief moment. The diversion worked, allowing Choji to close the gap between them rapidly. "Expansion jutsu, human boulder," Choji bellowed as he expanded his body and rolled toward Kakashi like a massive boulder. Kakashi, momentarily blinded, barely managed to roll out of the way, but he was caught by the shockwave of Choji's attack. Stumbling, he regained his footing just in time to see Shino send a concentrated wave of bugs directly toward the remaining bell. "Get it, Sakura!" Shino shouted. Sakura lunged forward, her eyes locked on the second bell. Her fingers just grazed it as Kakashi steadied himself. With a quick, decisive motion, she grasped the bell and pulled it free from Kakashi's waist. "Yes!" she cried out, elation surging through her as she held both bells high. Kakashi clapped his hands together, a wide grin spreading across his face. "Congratulations, Team 10. You've passed the bell test." A wave of relief washed over the three genin. Choji reverted to his normal size, panting heavily but grinning from ear to ear. "We really did it. We worked as a team." Shino allowed a rare smile to break through his usual stoic demeanor, proud of his teammates. "Understanding the nature of the test was crucial to our success." Sakura looked at her teammates, her heart swelling with pride. "I couldn't have done it without you both. Teamwork really does make the dream work." Kakashi nodded approvingly. "Good work, everyone. Remember this lesson. Teamwork is essential to being a successful ninja. There will be many challenges ahead, but if you can rely on each other, you'll only grow stronger." As they caught their breath and celebrated their victory, a sense of camaraderie settled over Team 10. The sun peeked through the leaves overhead, casting a warm glow on the trio. They had faced a daunting challenge and emerged victorious, not as individuals but as a team. The bond they formed in that moment would carry them through the trials ahead. Thanks so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed exploring this what if with me. If you did, please consider leaving a like and subscribing for more videos like this. Your support truly makes a difference, and I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments. Let me know what you'd like to see next. Until next time, take care and stay tuned for more.